All right, welcome to this week's episode of Vets and Real Estate Podcast. We are joined by Renee Zunker, who is the Real Brokerage Director of Military Division. Excited to hear about what Real is doing for veterans, so stay tuned for this episode. All right, well, Renee, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for giving your time and being willing to share your story, and then, of course, what Real's doing, for the veteran, the military community.
Well, thanks so much for having me here. It's literally one of my favorite things to talk about. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So, as I understand, you spent some time in the Air Force.
Yes.
What did you do in the Air Force, and why in the world would you leave?
So I was security forces in the Air Force. I did 6 years, one enlistment. I come from a military family. So my mom, 30 years in the Army, dad was Navy, sister was Marines. And so they all said, if you're going to join anything, join the Air Force. So I did, but then I told them that I joined security forces, and they're like, that's not exactly what we meant. Yeah, but I loved my time in the Air Force, loved my time in security forces. Not while I was in. Sure. I'll be the first to tell you, I was pretty salty while I was in. I didn't have a good time. I did all the things, I made the most of my enlistment while I was in. Very thankful for my time in the military. It definitely shaped me in the person that I am today. I don't know if I'd do anything differently. It was a fun time looking back on it. That's fond memories looking back.
I think I've heard of the term, it's the best time you never want to have again.
Oh, that's a good one. Yes. Yes, that's it.
So it sounds like you were ready to get out at the end of that first enlistment. Was real estate the end game? Was that exactly what you're going to do? Or did you think, maybe I'll look at law enforcement and, in the civilian sector? Or what did that transition look like?
Yeah, so I knew that I didn't want to be a career Air Force. I knew that I just was going to do this first enlistment and I was going to get out. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I did toy with going civilian law enforcement. I was OC sprayed and tasered right back to back when I was in the Air Force. And I was like, if I have to do that again, no, I won't. No, I'll do anything to avoid getting OC sprayed again. But it was probably my second deployment. I was in Afghanistan and I knew I was going to get out. This was probably 2014. And so I was just kind of opening the idea of, okay, well, what would I do? What do I want to do? Well, I knew that in the Air Force, I worked really hard. I was in security forces, so we were doing 12-hour shifts, which are in reality like 16-hour shifts, 6 days in a row. And I knew that I worked hard. I didn't mind working hard, but I knew that if I was going to work that hard and continue to do that, I wanted to get paid for it. Sure. So I was like, okay, well, what is a career where that happens? And so I was like, oh, real estate is commission-based. It's not a paycheck. It's not somewhere that I could just show up and get a paycheck. And so that was really enticing to me. But really what drove me in the direction of real estate is that while I was on this deployment, I was just reading all these books about mindset and how to think about money. And, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which
got me too.
Exactly. It's like the gateway drug to investing and the gateway book to investing and money stuff. And so I read that book, and then I read all the books that were recommended in that book. And I had gone through probably 10 or 15 of these money mindset investment books. And I kind of strung together that they all had one thing in common, and that was real estate. And so I didn't really know exactly, I never saw myself being one of these HGTV, showing the houses and doing the realtor thing. That was not enticing to me. It was really the be my own boss, be independent, those kind of things that drove me to it. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll get my real estate license and just see where it goes.
Fair.
Here we are.
So you get your license, you obviously go through the training, you take your classes, you take your exam. Then what happened?
Well, I was actually still in the military when I got my license.
Okay.
So I came back from that deployment and gave myself a few months. In that time span, I got married to my husband. And so we got married, and we're, still looking at, okay, what is it going to look like when I get out, when that, paycheck from the Air Force is not there anymore. Mm-hmm. And we talked about it a lot, and, we both got on board. Okay, it's going to be weird, but let's jump in and let's see how it goes. And so while I was still in, I was on flight, working mid shift over at Lackland. And on those 14-hour shifts, I would bring my laptop and do my courses on post, 2 a.m. It's
Sure.
not a whole lot else to do. So I spent, it took me probably 8 weeks or so to get my license. I got my license and I just started really doing the groundwork to set up myself for as I got out. I was listening to all the podcasts about how real estate works and just kind of introducing myself to that world. How do agents think? Where do they get business from? Why join a brokerage? Which brokerage to join? And I kind of just observed for a few months. And so I got my license December 2015. And by the time my contract ended April of 2016, I had my first closing. And I was like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
And so just slowly but surely, I just got obsessed with learning everything that I could about real estate. So I was just really exposing myself to the podcasts and going to all the classes. And I think what really set me up for the long-term success and what the difference of how some agents make it and some agents don't is that I lived out my first year in real estate on my Facebook. So I added everybody that I was in with, anyone that I knew, I added them. And it doesn't hurt that I'm actually from Schertz, just down the road. So I'm in my hometown-ish, being a military brat.
Yeah,
it's like hometown. And then I'm here with all these people that I was in the military with, and I'm showing them what I'm doing on a daily basis. I'm going to this class. I'm touring this neighborhood. Like, I'm not closing anything, but I was just sharing what I was learning and what I was doing. And the funny thing about sharing that with your friends is that if you have a decent group of friends, which most of my friends from the military are good, decent people, they want to see you succeed.
Sure.
So if you involve them in showing them what it's like to go on this journey of getting out of the military is scary, but it's possible. A lot of people came on that journey with me, and it turned into questions, which turned into, meet me at this house, which turned into, can I afford this house? And, it just kind of snowballed into a consistent client base of people that actually wanted to see me succeed because I was sharing my journey with them.
Huh. So that was all, you just lived on Facebook.
Yep.
And started building business.
Yep.
It's interesting as we've doing more and more of these interviews, social media keeps coming up over and over and over again. And again, I'm on the commercial side, so I'm pretty heavy into social media from a commercial standpoint, but nowhere near to the same level as what I think residential agents do. But it's just interesting that, the days of cold calling, the days of doing all that kind of stuff, I don't want to say it's dead. I think you still make a living that way, but just being active and visible seems to be kind of that secret sauce for so many that have found success.
Yes. And
of it.
the funny thing about a career in real estate is it's really not just a career in real estate. Like what I've found is, yes, selling houses is what I do, but I feel like I've almost gotten a degree in marketing and specifically social media marketing.
Sure.
That in itself is quite an art to be able to put yourself out there in a specific way to create this relationship with the viewer and the ideal viewer that you have to get them to know, like, and trust you. Know, like, and trust is a factor that salespeople have been talking about for a very long time. Well, there's studies that say that it only takes 6 minutes of someone watching you to start to feel like they can trust you. That's 2 TikToks.
Fair.
So it's like you have this superpower in our pockets, like right here, that's an avenue to be able to platform exactly what you want your client base or your audience to see and have them build that trust with you because they feel like they know, like, and trust you. And if you're buying the largest investment you're ever going to make, don't you want to do it with someone that you know, like, and trust?
Sure.
So I think social media is definitely a huge superpower for not just real estate agents, but I feel like any sales-based position to be able to let people kind of peek behind the scenes.
Fair. Was that something, I guess, when you got to your first brokerage, they kind of drilled that in you? Is that something you just kind of learned from just kind of looking? I mean, what did that, I guess, as you went to your first brokerage, what did that look like and what were they teaching you?
Great question. I like to talk about this because it kind of ties into that transition period of, you don't know all the things you don't know. My first brokerage, it was a small indie brokerage and I love them. They're great. But they did not do any of this social media stuff. There was a couple agents that dabbled in it and tried, but there was nobody that was doing it quite at the level that I was doing it. Me and maybe one or two other friends, we were doing it at a level that some of these agents just had never even fathomed, because a lot of them had been in the business a decade and they never had to do anything like that. So they're thinking, seeing us taking all these selfies and doing these videos, and they're like, these kids are just, playing around and not doing anything. And then once we started doing fairly well, like I closed 12 properties in my first year in real estate. And that's
It's good.
That's a pretty good first year in real estate. And so
there's a lot of agents that don't even do that in their 15, 20 years.
Exactly. And I had done it my first year, and all through social media. I had not gone door knock. I mean, I tried to do open houses, but a brand new agent doing just like an open house, I didn't have like follow-up plan or like a real good plan. The open house was so that I could post that I was doing an open house. Yeah, exactly. I really didn't care about leads from the open house because I didn't get any. But I wanted to post on Facebook that I was out working and doing stuff. And so that really helped. But my first brokerage did not do social media. And so I quickly found myself going, okay, well, I am becoming a bigger fish in this very small pond, and I wanted to be around other bigger fish doing more things. And so I started expanding, okay, well, if I don't want to be here, where do I want to go? And I looked into some other brokerages, and I did join a team where I did cold call, which is kind of like you don't know what you don't know until you figure it out. And I was thinking, listening to a lot of these other agents tell me that that's how you actually do business, is you cold call. And so I got this position on this team that I really liked, and I liked the people. And, but I would leave crying almost every day because I was cold calling people that did not want me to call them. And so
they're less than polite.
They're less than polite when you are calling them at 7:30 in the morning and 50 other agents have already called them, right? And so it was a terrible experience. And so I came back to that indie brokerage and really just started looking, okay, what direction should I go? And I ended up joining a larger brokerage, Remax. And Remax, same thing. People were great, but there really wasn't anyone in that one specific office that I could look to that I could say, oh, I want to be doing what they're doing. I felt like my own fish in my own pond. And I think what a lot of it was too was that when I got out of the military, I had told you I grew up in a military family. And so I had never been out of a military bubble. I had only known military life. And I wanted to run away from it as fast as I could after my enlistment, But I ran away from it, and I found myself in this environment of people who nobody was vets. There were a couple vets looking back at it, but there was not like a group of people who had camaraderie. There was not people who were talking to me and asking me, like, how are you doing? There wasn't much support specifically for vets. And, when I got out of the military, I had been almost on flight the majority of the time, either on flight or deployed or worked in the armory. So I'm not working like a back office job around people that I have to watch my language. Like my behavior reflected that.
Fair.
And so I didn't fit in. Like the easiest way to put it is I just felt like I did not fit in anywhere that I went. People just didn't know what to do with me. I'm just not your typical, at the time I was, 25, 26 getting into it. I'm not your typical 25, 26-year-old, girl that's getting into real estate. I had, all of this stuff that I had experienced and the person that I knew that I was, and that didn't reflect outwardly. Everybody that I dealt with had, at least it felt like to me, a lot of people had a perception of who I was, and it really just didn't match. I feel like I can only share it from my perspective of being a female that comes out of the military, but a lot of guys that come out of the military, they've got the haircut and they're clean shaven and they can, they have that persona, and a lot of people can pick them out of a crowd.
Sure.
It's almost the opposite for females, because not only can people not pick us out of a crowd, is like half the people don't believe us when we say
Sure.
that we have this experience. And that mismatch and misalignment of, I don't know if there's a better word for just a vibe. You know, you go from being surrounded by other military members your entire life and then get plopped into an office of people that, you know, are in.
Yeah, 55-year-old Peggy who's never done anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well, you never know what she's done.
Sure.
But the average person, there's just a misalignment of, you know, I definitely was not around my people.
Right.
I was really, and I couldn't figure out what this hole was. Like I felt very lonely. I felt very disconnected, but I couldn't really figure out what it was. And then I started leaning into the military content. You know, the majority of my clients were military anyway. They were either people that I was in with or people PCSing in and out. They were military. So I started leaning into that. And I remember that the more I leaned into that, the more I felt like there was this outward pressure of it didn't look like what I was supposed to do, but it felt like what I was supposed to do.
Okay.
And it just felt more comfortable, and I liked working with those clients way better than clients that I had no military connection with.
Sure.
And I just, every time I leaned more into that, created another reel for vets or something that brought me closer to a connection with the veteran community. The more I did that, the more I felt at home. And so I just started to lean into that more. And then, you know, I was still feeling like I hadn't found my people, didn't find any of the social media people. And then one day I did. It was someone here in San Antonio who I think we had, you know, real estate agents just randomly add each other.
Sure.
On Facebook. And so I had been following him for maybe a year or so, and he was a vet. And I was like, oh, he's doing social media stuff. And he was hosting a mastermind every week and would invite just random agents to come be a part of this mastermind. And they were all doing social media. And so I finally was like, oh, these people are doing social media. They understand me. They know what it's like to go out and film a video instead of do cold calls. And that is work, right? And so I had been a part of this mastermind, and I decided to join the brokerage that he was at. It was another cloud virtual brokerage. And we were there for about a month, and I just could tell. I was like, man, these are my people. I'm here. I finally have found these people. It's great. And then he approached me and he said, you know, I know you just joined this brokerage, but we have an opportunity to join this little brokerage that has barely 1,000 agents called Real. And we want you to come with us. And I was like, I have never heard of this brokerage. I had just joined on with, you know, EXP with this big brokerage, and I had a site of creating a network and doing all the things and being part of that military but I had just found my people. So I was like, I'm not letting this go. I don't care where you're going. I'm going with you. And it's like blind faith, stupid faith, because I didn't ask any questions about the company. I didn't know what the logo was. Like, I didn't know I had literally never heard of it. And I just trusted that I had my people and I wasn't going to let that go. And it was the best decision I've ever made.
That's awesome. And there's so many lessons in there. I'm like trying to make my notes like, oh man. No, I think that finding your tribe is so important. And I would agree. I think many veterans and even myself, as you got out and you realize you're not with your people, you're not with those other veterans. I was a little salty in language, and I still am, as I try not to cuss while I'm on these things. You know, when you finally find that group, that's it. I can completely get with what you're saying, and I think that's what many veterans that transition, regardless of going to real estate or not, that's the common struggle I think we hear all the time is I'm just not with my people. I'm not with the same people. It's just different. My first job was with a solar nonprofit. When I came out, you could have made a comedy skit over how different we were. We're here at 8:30, or the day starts at 8:30. I'm there at 8:15. Nobody shows up till 9:15. And I'm like, all right. And then we're sitting around drinking coffee and talking about, you know, whatever else was going on. I was like, all right, shouldn't we be working? Oh, yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. And I mean, they're all good people, but it was so different, vastly
So
different. So you mentioned you made it a reel and you got into the, you know, obviously into the director of the military division. What is it that Real's doing for veterans?
Well, I actually want to back up for a second because I want to talk about, I was lucky enough to be at Real early, right?
Sure.
1,200 agents when I first joined, and I watched all of the things that they did to grow, right? Like growing from 1,200 to where we just hit 23,000 today. There were some major growing pains in that. And I just over and over again, I watched our leadership team be present in growing the brokerage and making decisions in the best interest of the agents, not necessarily in the best interest of like, oh, grow it this way or do this because we need to make this kind of profit. It literally was, how do we make the agents' lives better?
Sure.
And then the culture of collaboration that we have of like people just wanting to jump in and help and share and grow each other's businesses, and that vibe of reaching your hand back down the ladder to help other agents that have been where you've been, that was just permeating through everything. And I really saw that, okay, it's not just a slogan, it really is how this company operates. So in early 2023, I had leaned into the military marketing and our president, Sharon Srivatsa, and if y'all are not following Sharon on Instagram, he is like the sales guru and entrepreneur business guy. I struggled to keep up with him. He talks very fast, but he's very smart, very great mentor. He called me, or he sent me a text, and the president of your company is sending you a text, and you're like, oh no, what did I do? And so he sent me a text, and he's like, hey Renee, I hear you have a military business and you're a vet. We would love your help on a project that we're doing. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm in. Whatever you guys want, I'm in. And so we all got into this Zoom, and there was, I think 5 of us. It was me and 4 other guys that were also vets, had military flavored businesses. And they said, okay, well, Real is going to create our first division. And, the owner of our company, Tamir, he's a veteran. He's was a veteran of the Israeli army. And Sharon does a lot of work giving back, coaching special operations veterans on how, with their speaking careers and presenting and skills like that. And so both of them were just like, there is nothing we would want to pour our efforts in more than a military division. What can we do? And they literally gave the 5 of us the reins. It is by the agents, for the agents. So we have corporate that we have to maybe ask blessings for some stuff, but for the most part, they are like, hey, whatever you guys want to do, whatever y'all need, whatever you think an agent needs to be able to be successful in this division, do it. And it's been an interesting journey. We started literally from nothing early 2023, and now we're at 800 agents, a little bit more than 800 and growing. But, it's by the agents, for the agents. We have so many things that we do we have probably one of our biggest pillars of what we do in the division is education. So everything is on the back of education.
Sure.
Because that's where it all starts. If you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to be doing anything. So we started just simply with a mastermind. At first, it was me hopping in and going, okay, I've got to run this mastermind every week. What are we doing? So quickly, I brought someone in to help me. So we have Nugget of Augusta runs our mastermind every week now. But we know that it's not just about like us sitting there talking about how to sell homes. We bring in the other elite agents from the brokerage. We bring in different mortgage lenders. We bring in all sorts of different people who want to see the agents in the division increase their knowledge, grow their businesses. And so they come in and teach every week. We have a different masterclass topic. Nugget's doing series right now. So we just wrapped up a series all about social media. So we have some of the biggest agents in our entire brokerage and all across the country who just do their entire business through social media. They come in and they'll screen share. They'll go behind the scenes in what they're doing. They break down the numbers. They literally just give everything away that they want, because that's kind of just the culture that Real has grown, is this culture of collaboration over competition. A rising tide lifts all boats. So we start with that. And so we got this masterclass going every week. The agents love it. And we were thinking, okay, what else could we do? So we set up a skill bridge program. So now Real as a brokerage, right? Like any agent could sign up to become a skill bridge mentor and get skill bridge people. But we've actually taken it a step further, and we've built an entire training program around, Real has a 12-week new agent training program for all agents, not just military flavored, but just all agents, a 12-week recorded and live. So you can watch recordings or you could attend the live class whenever they have it. And we used that to kind of in tandem build a program for our skill bridge so that we're cutting the learning curve, cutting the building curve, if you will, of like if you were to go out and say, well, I want to set up a skill bridge program. Okay, well, now you've got to go through, what are you going to teach them? How are you going to teach them? What are the parameters that they're going to learn? How are you going to do all of this stuff? We've taken that, boxed it up, and now the agents that are in the military division can sign up to be skill bridge mentors, and now they can just raise their hand and tell people, hey, I'm skill bridge, we're skill bridge, and then we as the division support all of that to happen.
That's awesome, because I know I went through that process trying to do it myself, and I was just like, head against the wall. It is run by the government, exactly what you expect. It's a little painful.
Exactly. So we have our director of education on the leadership team for the military division. Like we have our own leadership team just for the division. So Kyle is our skill bridge guy, and he's done so much of this. He was at a previous brokerage where he did a lot of it, and so he's helped us build this program to be. I mean, we're still in our pilot phase now. We're end of 24. We're piloting the skill bridge program just to make it better.
Sure.
We're not going to roll something out and go, this is a done product. Almost everything that we're building it in a way of like, here's the concept. Here's an outline of what we've got so far. We want our agents to go out into the field, deploy it, figure it out, tell us what the bugs are, tell us what's working, what's not working, and then come back and we'll continue to refine it until it is something that's super polished.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, obviously that's a lot of reasons to want to sit down and look at Real. Is there anything else that you guys are doing? I guess you got the training, you got the education, the mentor, the camaraderie. Is there anything else that you guys are doing to kind of grow that veteran? If I was coming out of the military, trying to figure out where in the hell I'm going to go, what else, why Real over all the other brokerages out there?
Well, that's a good question. So there's a million reasons to join Real as a brokerage. Just as a brokerage, they're fantastic. You could not pay me enough money to go bring my business anywhere else. Specifically with the military division, if I were someone that is maybe within 6 months of getting out of the military and they're thinking that they might want to become a real estate agent, one, I would say, get your license as soon as possible. That's literally step number one. And Real has, I don't know if a new agent can understand it without experiencing it, but as someone who's been in a brokerage where collaboration is not one of their values, right? Like in another brokerage, if you're in an office, even if you're in an office of successful agents, they have no incentive to help you. They are training their competition if they come over and sit down with you and do something. With Real and any brokerage that has a revenue share model, the easiest way to put it is that they've put the incentives in the right places to encourage the right behavior. Because I have one of my guys that I was in the military with, he actually bought a house from me earlier this year. He got his license and now he's an agent at Real. And because he is with me and he signed up, I'm his sponsor. I have a financial incentive to make sure he does well.
Sure.
Other than the fact that I want to see him do really well.
Sure.
And I want to see every agent that comes out of the military. And I think that veterans are uniquely positioned to be fantastic real estate agents, maybe for all the wrong reasons, and the fact that we can put up with just a lot.
Sure.
No weekends, holidays off, different, maybe not the best reasons, but I do think that we're uniquely qualified to do it really well. The self-discipline's probably the healthiest skill that we leave with that helps us. But if you're partnered with an agent who is your sponsor, they are literally making money when you make money. So my incentive is to make sure that my troops make money so that I want to make money, but I want them to make money. And then in turn, they're going to attract agents who also want to come over and join their mission, and they're going to make money from them. So it's just kind of spreading out the opportunity to be able to be profitable. Whereas if you're sitting at another brokerage that's maybe a larger brokerage that does not have a revenue share opportunity, you have, unless that agent is on your team, you have no incentive to make other agents do better. It's really every agent for themselves. And if your broker wants to answer your call, that's really who is really responsible for mentoring and counseling you and guiding you. I don't know if people will really understand it until they experience it, but you can take my word for it. Just being at a brokerage where you have access to mentorship is so important. And in the military division, we actually have a brand empowerment duo. The gentleman that you saw me on Instagram with, they moved to New Braunfels in here in San Antonio recently, and they're our brand empowerment guys. And so they are building an entire kit of, hey, if you want to come over into the military division, here's step number 1. Make sure all of your social media is on par. What is your branding? Who is your ideal client? They're going to go through some of those branding steps with you so that they're cutting the learning curve in half.
Sure.
And so we have them helping with agents set up their brand and their direction. And I mean, the mentorship, we have lots of agents that come into our group and they're just posting questions. And then you get agents like me. I've been in the business 9 years. I go in there and answer questions of, if people have issues or ideas that they want to flesh out, or something that they want to walk through with another experienced agent, they can come in there, and we all want to see everybody do well. That is really a consistent theme at Real. So whether you're posting in the military division or, I can't tell you, as I'm in a season of growing my business right now, I just hired my first assistant. I'm bringing on a showing agent in the next couple of months. At every stage of me growing my business, I have been able to reach out to someone at Real who is not even my sponsor, not someone that is financially incentivized for me to do well. And I'll ask them, I say, hey, you're doing this in your business. Can we jump on a call and can I ask you some questions? I've had at least half a dozen phone calls like that this year of agents that have no incentive for me to do well, but they're willing to, just because that's kind of the culture that we've built at Real is, hey, if I've got time to reach my hand back down the ladder and save you maybe $10,000 in mistakes, we want to do that.
Or a lot of heartache.
A lot of heartache, yeah. Or discouragement, There's some people where they're just like one bad decision away from having to get out of the business. Right. And having a group of people that you can lean on to say, hey guys, I have this idea. Is this a terrible idea? And people that care about you to go, do not do that. Or do it this way or something. Just having that support is really important.
Yeah. And I've always liked, and I know one of the things that I unfortunately didn't have a mentor early in my career. And it's one of the things that I were to go back, I would absolutely go and try to find that mentor. I had some people I kind of mentored, but not somebody who was just vested in me. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think helped me was when I got out, I went to UTSA. There was a Marine who he graduated about a semester before me, and both went to commercial brokerage, both went a little bit different paths a little bit, but we were both competitive. And it was about once a quarter, we got together, we got lunch at the Subway right next to his office, and we competed friendly with each other. We were both raced to see who could be a CCIM first, and I won, right? And then we're both racing who's going to get our broker's license first. Well, he won. And it was one of those that as I was doing something, it's like, crap, I should be doing this too. And he'd be doing something that, oh man, I should be doing what Keith's doing. And even without having the mentorship, I think there's so much value, especially in a military division within a brokerage, is finding those other veterans that are there. Because the nice thing is, like, I want to beat Keith. Like, that was the goal, was I was going to beat Keith, but I also wanted to beat Keith when he was at 100%. Mm-hmm. I always wanted to make sure that iron was sharpening iron. And if I could get Keith to go along and we were neck and neck trying to compete with one another, I'm going to be better if he's at 100%. And that's been always the cool thing. I think why many of us in real estate that are veterans kind of find ourselves around each other. One, the rapport is easy to do. But two, I think it's that idea that we can compete, even if we're completely separate businesses, we can still compete and learn and try to get better. So I don't know. I've always enjoyed that side, and seeing so many brokerages now starting to open up these military divisions or the veteran divisions, seeing that start to become a trend in our industry, which, I mean, to be fair, what, 3-4 years ago, that really wasn't a thing.
Right.
I can't think of one that was more than 4 years ago. I can't think of one that was around, at least not largely, that was around. So seeing that start to become a trend, especially with so many of our brothers and sisters that are getting out of the military, we're seeing downsizing, we're seeing all that. Real estate's an amazing career path for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, real estate agents have an 87% failure rate. I have at least a dozen friends that I knew while I was in, and they've gotten out and they've gotten their real estate license. I'm not amazing with math, but I know not 87% of them have failed. A lot of them have done really well. Some of them are not doing it anymore, but the majority of the people that I know who have gotten out of the military and gone into real estate have done really well.
Yeah. So as we're wrapping up with kind of our thoughts here, if you were to sit back and look at everything you've been through, which obviously thank you for sharing everything you've been through. If you were to look back at everything, is there anything you would have told the Renee, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, that you should have done this, or, hey, dummy, like, come on, like you could have had so much less heartbreak. Is there anything you would have given that advice back to yourself to not do again?
No, nothing. Because the team that I got fired from because I hated cold calling, the brokerages that I was at that I didn't like, the ways that I built my business that didn't work, all of the things that didn't work taught me so much. I had tried to build a team at one point, and I started with the buyer's agent, which anybody who has a team can hear that and say, that's not how you do that. It's like, start with the buyer's agent. Like, all of these things that I've done that I've failed at have taught me so much and molded me into the person that I am. So the person that I am today wouldn't be here without all those failures. So no, go forward, fail hard, like write it down, take notes, reevaluate, and try again.
Fair. Well, Renee, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing your story and what Real's doing for the military folks that are out there. Hopefully, if we get questions, and we've gotten several questions kind of off some of these, you're more than willing to jump in, answer those questions, or
Yes.
we'll do a follow-up on some of those FAQs that we may get from your presentation. But thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to share that if anyone wants to come follow me on Instagram, Instagram or Facebook, both public, I have my link tree pinned at the top of both of those. There's links about the military division. There's links about Real. And you can schedule a time to hop on a call with me or, get my contact info. I'm an open book. I love talking about real estate, about veteran stuff, about how to build business. I'm literally obsessed with it. So anybody that has questions or wants to chat with me about any of that, please come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.